Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Cam Wade. You've reached Commercial Roofing Radio, and I have an exciting guest with me today, a really good friend of mine, Andrew Hertzler from XW Roofing out on the East Coast. He's going to bring some information to us today that maybe you don't know, and he's going to teach me a thing or two. But man, everyone say hello virtually to my buddy Andrew. What's going on, Andrew?
Hey, it's a beautiful day in paradise, and it's about 55 and a little bit rainy here in Pennsylvania, but it's here in PA, the roofs don't leak if it ain't raining. So,
That's a good way to find him, that's for sure. So man, let's we're gonna rewind about what just over 3 years ago when you and I first met, isn't it? Right? Just over 3 years. We met just before Hurricane Ida in New Orleans. Let's say a good maybe 3 to 4 months. At an event in Texas in Keller. It was we went to the cigar bar, wasn't it?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we had a networking marketing event. It's the first time I met a lot of really good people that now I call uh, brother, sister, just people, like yourself that I trust, that I care a lot about. And of course, I love to watch the growth, especially again, knowing you 3 years ago. And no, man, from Hurricane Ida to today, how much time and how many roofs have gone on and been torn off again. So a lot's going on. I care deeply about you as a friend, and I think you got so much to offer, especially commercial roofing radio and of course life. And I just want more people to know you because everyone that I've introduced you to and that you've introduced me to, I think are just solid people. And I don't think you can go wrong with having an Andrew Hertzler in your back pocket. So I appreciate you being on, buddy.
Well, thanks, Cam. I appreciate that introduction, and I appreciate you. And I just it's just an honor for me to be here today on the commercial roofing radio. That's really an honor for me to be here. I'm like everybody else. I come from pretty humble beginnings, so to be chosen for that's awesome, and so I appreciate it very much.
Well, heck yeah. Well, we appreciate you, brother. And we want to dive into that humble upbringings and an upbringing that um, most might not know about or even have an iota of what that type of upbringing would be like, look like, feel like. And of course, now your life is a bit different. And let's talk about that. So and of course, these are questions I made sure I didn't want to disrespect. And this is a roofing podcast, but we talk about all things roofing, and that is life and growth. And that's, I think, one thing that you and your community are big about: personal growth and growing. Your foundational businesses and your mission of taking care of your family and your immediate communities. You guys have big effects. Um, and let's dive right into it. It's the Amish community is your humble upbringing. Tell us a little bit about that, what it was like living in a world, and how you came to be where you are right now in your life.
So yeah, growing up in the Amish culture is completely different from what from what most people will ever realize. It's a very protected, society. I know a lot of people that are into roofing thing that got into it because maybe they were involved in drugs or alcohol or whatever, and this was like the last thing they could do because of a record. Well, in the Amish world, it's a lot different than that. You're really protected. And the group I was with was a very conservative group, and you're very protected from that type of outside influence. There's absolutely, no drugs, no alcohol within the community. That's a big that's a big thing. Like they don't accept any of that. So yeah, I grew up there in our culture, in our society where we would work for our family until we were 21 years of age. So prior to that, you didn't really have anything. A strong work ethic is something that everybody teaches. So that's a normal. So at the age of 21, obviously I was on my own, and what do I do with this thing called life? And one of the things that's sort of restrictive within the community is you got to figure out what am I going to do? How do I, right? What am I going to do to generate some income? And these are people like where we were. You don't have a vehicle, you don't have a phone, you don't have a voicemail, you don't have a computer, right? So getting outside influence is pretty tough when you're shielded from all that. And I started working for my brother who had a general construction company. Started working for him and actually started my own roofing business strictly because of the fact that it was one of the few things that I knew to do besides milking cows. I grew up on a dairy farm. I knew how to milk cows, but it didn't pay well. It was a lot of it was a lot of hours, a lot of time. It didn't pay well. And my brother had work, and he taught us some things, but he didn't have enough work for us to stay busy. So I started out on our own, and kind of the reason I chose roofing was, yeah, it was hard, brutal work, but it was sort of fun, and it was very simplistic in nature. And I quickly discovered that there is a tremendous market for metal roofing. This was back in 2011. Tremendous market for metal roofing. It was pretty new, actually. I didn't know that. I was just a guy very separated from the outside culture, and I knew that if people were willing to buy what I was selling, then that was a good thing. And so our process, people are like, well, how do people get in touch with you? Well, you could stop by my door, you could send a piece in the mail. We seldom got that, but we had one other thing, and that was that we had a community phone. And at this community phone, you were allowed to use that number if you explained to everybody that you weren't available all the time. You were only available at select times. So in the
Really?
evenings, yeah, it was on my business card. I wish I kept a copy of it. From between the hour of 6:30 and 7 p.m., I would sit at that phone shanty, and anybody that wanted to do business would have to call within that time frame. That's that's
Wow.
how that's how we did business. And I mean, you could call my driver because remember, I don't have vehicles. We don't have driver's license. We're just
Hmm.
we're just simple people. You could call him if you knew how to get in touch with him and potentially relay a message there. But the community did not want us giving out the driver's phone number because that was considered to be frowned upon. So it was if he took it upon himself to do it, then that went there. But our communication, and you could call that number during the day, and there was no voicemail attached to it. It would ring 20 times and then it would hang up. So our communication meant that you would call the number, and if you were lucky enough that somebody would answer it, you got through. If there was nobody there, nobody answered it. There was no voicemail system.
Wow, that's pretty wild. Was it ever used for like person like other personal stuff? Could you call it like outside girlfriend or anything like that if you're breaking the rules? Was
Well,
there anyone like listening in on those conversations to make sure you guys weren't doing anything outside? Because I mean that's a gray line, right? You guys back no vehicles, right? But you could
right.
utilize someone to come pick you up. Where's the loophole? How did you find a loophole in that, or where did that come from? To where it's like, it's kind of breaking the rules, but it's you got to do what you got to do, right? To adapt.
So, vehicles, was an accepted mode of transportation for a long time, longer than I've been alive, but with only one exception. That was that, somebody else had to be driving them, had to be his vehicle, right? We were not allowed to own, lease, rent. We had nothing to do with the vehicle, the trailers, anything like that. That was all on someone else.
Mm.
So to your point about the listening into the phones, no, there was none of that. They were not educated enough to even know how to do that. And
Mm.
and here's the flip side of it: who are you going to call? Because none of the other Amish people have phone numbers either. Now, there's maybe a handful of businesses that operate on the same premise that I do within the community that have phone hours also. But a lot of those, if let's say they're manufacturing businesses, then they're open during the day, right? They're open between 8 and 9 or something like that. A lot of them did it in the morning. Where I was out working, I was on the job. I couldn't commit every morning to sitting by the telephone, so we did it in the evenings after work, and that's yeah,
Well,
that's how that worked. So.
that is wild. Well, man, thanks for sharing that. And so when you are, a younger Joe, and you're, of course, working with your community, whatever your job may be. I mean, I think, of course, the stereotypes, a lot of, or when you think of Amish, or you think of barn raising, or making those really cool, Adirondack chairs that you see at the state fairs or whatnot. But I mean, everything's got to get built within a community. So, is there, if you really want to raise barns or be a carpenter in that way, do you have like a couple of different avenues, and you kind of like, you're like roofing, that's I dig roofing, I want to learn more about that, and then there's like kind of like, this professional expert tradesman that's a roofer within the community that you go learn from, or do you kind of have to, tug on someone outside of the community, non-follower, if you will, to get that information? How did you make that, I guess, that metamorphosis into the life that you live today, because now you're not with the community anymore, correct? And you haven't been
That's
for some
correct.
time.
Yeah, we left that community in 2018. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
Um,
I meant. So go ahead.
so in our community there, no, there's nobody that like has a profession of teaching this. So if there's something you want to learn, you got to find somebody that's doing it and figure out a way to work for him, whatever deal he works up for you. Because the preferred choice within the community is that you work for each other, that you work for someone within the community. It's okay if you have to work for someone outside the community. They don't appreciate it as much, and so. Um, the ideal thing is that the community there was very conservative, and their goal was to teach people how to farm. They wanted everybody to be a farmer,
Mm.
and in order to be a farmer, which you had to have either one of two things. You had to have either a wealthy family that was able to buy a farm and get you started, or you had to have great financial backing somewhere. And I just happened to not come from any one of those avenues. I was the youngest of 8, so by the time that I came along, my dad had pretty much spent all his resources in buying farms for the older family, and so I was out, right? Like there was
Yeah.
the well had run dry. There was none of those options for me. Um, and so it was either, okay, I have to figure this out on my own, and that's kind of how I've lived my life. It was interesting, but that's where it went, and I discovered really quick that, although the world will tell you differently, you can do quite well by that if you're willing to hustle. I sold my first $1 million without a voicemail or a phone or a computer or a vehicle. I didn't own anything.
Well,
you know.
yeah. It's too easy today. People make some really incredible excuses. In fact, the work that goes into creating the lies and excuses to avoid the shit you just got to get done, it takes a lot less friction and emotion and work to just do the right thing and do the work. I think at some point in time, hopefully we all learn that sooner than later, and switch into overdrive. So with that being said, like, you having to kind of dare to be great, you weren't left with a lot in the kitty box as far as any type of assistance. How does that feel, um, going from the support of the community? Not that you didn't have any, but like, to have to go out there and start trusting and relying on people that maybe, just weren't within the community, and just in a whole new world, if you would.
Well, and one of the things I think one of the reasons that we're not part of it today is I never really fit in. I was part of it, but I never really fit in that sense that I never got much assistance everywhere. I was kind of a rebel child, and I liked to push the boundaries, and people did not appreciate that. The group I was with totally did not appreciate that, and I respect that, okay? But because they didn't appreciate that, nobody within the community was going to bend real far to help me, whatever that may have been. If I wanted assistance of something, they pretty much just turned a blind eye and walked away.
Hmm.
And I'll give you one example. This was my dad. I was doing a project, and I got way in over my head, and nobody, very few people want to admit this, but I got in over my head, and I was upside down on the project, and I needed money, and I didn't have it. And I went to see my dad, and he's like, whatever. He said, well, how much money do you need? I said, well, I need $10,000. And and it wasn't like I was spending. It was for a project that had just turned really sour.
Hmm.
And I don't walk away from stuff. I complete. That's just the way it is. And so I was going to do the right thing no matter what. And he says, well, how long do you pay it back? I said, I'll have it back to you in 12 months. Absolutely no doubt about it. And he's whining and going on. And he's like, okay, all right, I'll do it. And he wrote me out a check for 10 grand. I put it in the bank. And we agreed on the payments. We agreed on the terms. I paid him interest, right? It was all part of it. And a couple months later, we meet up somewhere. He's at an auction and he wants to buy stuff. And he kind of tears me up a little bit. He's like, "Hey, how soon are you getting that money back?" I said, "We're 3 months into a 12 months agreement. What are you talking about?" Well, he says, I think I think you guys do pretty well. I think you should be able to pay it back sooner. He said, I'd like to have it back sooner rather than later. Now, granted, at that time, my dad's 63, 64 years old. He's retired, okay? He's got more money in the bank than I've had yet, okay? I mean, his working days are for the most part over. Not that he's lazy, but and it just rubbed me the wrong way. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to put myself in a spot where someone's just going to dig at me every day for whatever reason. And so I just went to work. I worked real hard and I paid him in full in the next 30 days. So on a 12 months loan, I paid him back in the first four just because he was goading me, and that's just kind of been that's kind of been the thing. We've had different people from the community would pull those types of stunts, and I just said, you know what, that's not how I do business. When I tell you something, that's what you're getting, and so while there's a lot of good people in the Amish community, sometimes they have what I call local politics in the community themselves, and
Hmm.
they're seldom helpful. And that was kind of just the thing that I was. And so I learned that if it is to be, it's up to me. I had to do it on my own and figure it out as I went along.
Right on, man. Well, that's cool. And yeah, I've definitely seen that about you. What you say you're going to do, you do it. It doesn't matter what state you're in or how far you got to go. And I respect and love that about you, man. I've seen you do some pretty cool things, some big things, really, and some crunches, especially when we were in Hurricane Ida. And just, man, you and your team were just the fixers, the go-to guys in an upside down world. Out there was just a hot mess. And I appreciate you for that. And I know it's what definitely made our relationship just catapult. When you're in the trenches with people, you really learn who they really are really quick. So yeah, I love you and your guys that you brought with you, man. There's some good fellas, and I loved getting the opportunity to eat the heck out of all that good cooking your wife cooked up, and then later on to find out that you guys, all that stuff was grown in your garden, and that's pretty amazing. That's something I really, really want to get into, is having a big garden like you. Um,
Well,
anyway,
thanks. I appreciate that. That's one of the Amish methods of survival is that a lot of them don't get paid that much, and so people are like, how can they make it? And the reason that they can make it is that the lifestyle of the Amish is you don't spend. They just simply don't buy. The reason that they make it is they can yet today you'll see an Amish family with 3, 4 children, and they'll make it on $40,000 to $50,000 a year while making payments just fine. And the reason that they can make it is because they just don't buy. They either they grow it or they make it or whatever. They just don't buy anything from the store, right? There's no daily Starbucks fix because they're not out and about driving, right? They have to pay
yeah.
for every mile that somebody takes them. You got to pay them by the mile, right? And so that's how they survive. And my wife is a product of that. She loves the garden. If it was just on me, it wouldn't go. But she loves the garden. It's like mental therapy for her. She goes
Yeah.
out there and when somebody loves it as much as she does, she just pours her heart into it. And it's amazing. I do a little bit of it. I got a tractor, I do the plowing and I work it up and I make it pretty. I do some of that, but the growing part, it's all her. And she's an amazing woman and she does really well with it, but I can't take the credit for it. I mean, she works it, and so now she's got the children working in it, and it works pretty well.
Well, it looks like a lot of work. 'Cause, I mean, it's a pretty good size one, dude. It looks like you could feed an army with it.
So.
Um,
Yeah.
I can't wait to come check it out for sure, and stay at your Airbnb. That looks quaint as heck, especially in the area that you are, which I haven't been able to spend too much time up there. Which I was just in Virginia, which wasn't what 4 hours from you.
Yeah,
Um,
I would say probably about 4 hours. Yeah.
yeah, and that was gorgeous over there. So I want to go spend some more time there for sure. But I want to touch on because I could get carried away talking about just regular personal stuff all the dang time with you. But we're here to talk about commercial roofing, and you know, we could go again all day about how you got into it, how you got started. But let's talk about now the products that you utilize, and it's not just a product, but it's a part of your business, and that's the business and products of Conklin. Um, it was that the first product you got introduced to, or because again, we if you haven't heard of Conklin before, there's a lot of ties, of course, a lot of Amish and former Amish and other communities are all within it, and in itself is, correct me if I'm wrong, is it also like a multi-level marketing in sense, or as far as its business structure?
Yeah, so Conklin's very unique. They definitely do have a an aspect of the MLM. It's not a requirement if somebody wants to just use their products and go about and build a great
Okay.
roofing business. It is certainly not a requirement. You're not required to purchase anything. You're not required to build an MLM. If you want to, that's your choice. Uh, so I was a roofing contractor, and we did a lot of metal roofs. Metal roofs was kind of our specialty, and we did some shingle, but a lot of metal roofs. So we used GAF products. We used Owens Corning's, all of the major guys, Tamco. I stayed away from IKO because at that time they had a very bad rap. They had produced some bad product at some time, and so we just stayed away from. We wouldn't touch them. And we worked with, your major suppliers. We have a Home Depot here. We have Lowe's. We have ABC Supply. We have all of those. And so we would work with all of them. And one of my first experiences was we were working with a small project. Some friends of ours, metal roof, and they had put an addition on it. It should have never been done like that. But nonetheless, they wanted me to fix it. They kept having this leak. And so I went to any and all of these stores, and I asked them what's the best solution for this type of metal roof. Now, granted, this is 2011, 2012, and I would buy different types of caulking and this, that, and the other thing, and there was just I could not get it to stop leaking, no matter what I tried and whose product that I bought. I just couldn't get it to stop leaking. And I thought, well, that's kind of strange. I guess metal roofs just leak, right? You put them on too flat, they're just going to leak. There's no way around it. And coincidentally enough, several months after that, I got introduced to Conklin as a commercial roofing solution. And one of the things that there was a couple of things that intrigued me about them. One of them was they said they had a solution to sealing metal roofs. So I was all ears because I had this experience where the metal roof just couldn't be sealed. And the other thing that I liked about it was the people were willing to collaborate and work together, unlike anything in our field. Me working as a residential contractor, all the other contractors around, nobody would really give you any tips. They viewed themselves as competitors. And it was very cutthroat. Like if somebody, heard that, oh, you were doing XYZ in order to make an extra 10 cents, they all started doing the same thing immediately right away, right? And so whatever insight you had or whatever, you kept it to yourself because there was no reason to give it to them. When I
Sure.
joined Conklin, I discovered that it was the exact opposite, that those people, we talked to people close by and people from states away, and the culture there was everyone was willing to share what works for them to make your world better. And I was blown away by it. I said, I want to be a part of these types of people.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, you just mentioning that, just reading their mission statement, which is pretty cool. I don't have a producer, so I've got to do my own. Uh, but I wish I had somebody. Hey, Jordan, can you pull that up? Our mission statement, they say, the mission of Conklin Company is to build a company committed to growth and helping people see who they are and the difference they can make. Personal development and growth can only be realized through our commitment to quality products and excellence in service. Together, as a team of individuals, we pledge to have a positive impact on the future of America while building a business to the glory of God. I think that's freaking
Amen.
awesome.
It is
Yeah,
awesome.
right.
It is
Amen.
awesome. Yeah. Yeah, and thanks for pulling that up. I should probably have it memorized, but yeah, I mean that's who they are, and that's 100% true. I mean, you look at what everything they do is geared towards that. So I appreciate the fact that I can go to their conventions, I can go to their meetings,
Hmm.
okay, and I'll just tell it straight how it is, okay. There is never any alcohol at any corporate events, period, okay. Never has, and never will, right? They are not that type of company. So there's no alcohol. Okay. The everything is designed to be business and family friendly. And I have learned very quickly when working through these other companies, and I'm not going to go bash anyone, but that's not in the world that we're in the roofing and construction industry, that is not the norm. And I'm sure you would agree with that,
Oh yeah, sure.
you know.
Yeah, I'm
So
just everywhere, really. It's tough,
yeah,
but yeah, especially that's definitely the stereotype that we do in our industry do have. So that is, I think, important. It's been proven in my life, and I think in probably anyone's. If you want to be honest, what goes in a man comes out of man, and
sure.
it's definitely been true for me. Who you surround yourself with, and I know as a young salesman myself, when you lose faith, and it's even as an adult, when you lose faith in a product as a salesman,
Mhm.
I can't sell it if I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
If I know it's a product that's just a product to generate income for a business and it's actually a piece of crap product,
Mhm.
and there's no substance behind it and there's no people behind it that care, how do do that? And I know millions and millions of people do it every day. It's a paycheck. They just want a paycheck, and I get that. It's survival, but it does make a difference when you can really wake up and know that the work that you're doing today does make a difference. The products that you're selling, that you're applying, aren't just to generate an income; they're to perpetuate and further a mission. And that is, I think at the essence of just life. Doing the right thing. Um, doing what, treating others how they deserve to be treated. Um, so yeah, I love that when I got to see that, because I mean, Conklin doesn't just do roofing, and they've been around. They've been doing roofing what, since '77? Am I right? Or
That's correct.
70?
Since 1977 is when they first developed the roofing products. And yes, they've been making other products since
Dude,
before then,
it's
and they
insane.
still yeah, and they still do. They incorporated in 1969. So if you look at the world today, whether it's roof coating products, whether it's MLMs, whatever, right? And you find someone with a 50-year history, I mean that's certainly significant. And you mentioned a little bit about the MLM side, and I'll touch on that briefly. Because everybody gets scared when they hear the MLM, and that's
Sure.
okay. They have reason to be. I personally, I decided to work that side of the business because I genuinely believe that we have something that can make people's lives better. I do, and I'll give you a brief example. We were working with a guy last year. His name was Brandon, and so Brandon comes to me. He's not part of our group. He has some interest, but he never was. And he says, "Hey, guy called me about this metal roof." And he asked me if I could give him a price on tearing it off and redoing it because it's leaking and he wants it fixed and it's a problem. And he says, would you go with me to go look at that project? And that's what happens in our type of MLM business is when we work with someone, we work with someone. We go with them. We go out with them on the jobs. We walk roofs together. We help them price stuff together. Like we put quite a bit into it. And so I say it's like an unpaid coach or a mentor would be the best word for it. So
Hmm.
we drove out there. It was about an hour away. We walked the roof, and I said to Brandon, I said, this guy doesn't need a new roof. I said, you could go and use our coatings. You could do some repairs on this. We could stop all his leaks and save him a bunch of money in the process. And he says, well, okay, give me an idea what kind of price range you're thinking. I said, well, if it was me, I would probably price this somewhere in the $4,000 or $5,000 because we weren't doing a whole system. We were just going to make some repairs, take care of the problem. And pulling off the roof was every bit of 80 to 90 square, right? And so nobody was going to pull that roof off and put it back on for, I don't know, less than if I had to make a guess, maybe it was bigger than that. I don't know. I think at the time I figured it up. I think the re-roof it would have been about 12, 13,000. And so he wrote up the price, gave it to them. They were thrilled. They were like, "Yes, let's do this. Let's do it right now." So he goes and he's like, "Okay, what do we do next?" And I said, "Here, We go through it. We order the supplies we need, and we get it done. So he ordered the supplies. The supplies were around right about $2,200 worth of product. And then I went, and one of our employees went with him and helped him do the project. So on that project, I get paid, I think about 8%. So I figured it paid me probably about $200, right? That was my commission thing because of the MLM factor.
Mm.
He walked away with about $2,200 in profit, okay? And he was just a roofing contractor. He's not building the MLM. He made about $2,200 in profit. Pretty easy from that. I got about $200, okay? The building owner got a price of less than half of what it would have cost him for a new roof. So I looked at this and I said, who's the biggest winner here? Okay? Because it wasn't me. I was here and I helped everybody along the road. But that's the way I view it, you know. If MLM scares you, that's perfectly fine. Just know that in when you're working with me, you're getting an unpaid advisor for a lot of hours that you don't get in any other industry.
Sure. And and that's the terrible thing about terrible people that do shitty work, and are, that give MLM a bad name because people synonymously, put that in with pyramid scheme, which they're two
Hmm.
totally different things. Pyramid scheme's illegal. MLM is not. In fact, look at Amway. Still today, one of the largest, if not the largest MLM still today. They're a multi-billion-dollar organization, and they are the number one manufacturer and distributor of cosmetics, as well as multitude of other products. You can get just about anything from them, and they've made multimillionaires out of people since I think the '60s, and they're still pumping along. And but still today, people still are so scared of MLM because they look at the all the other hundreds and thousands of them that have been busted and that are illegal or we're not legit. Maybe they started out legit, but the people behind them didn't have the true mission statements to follow through and to execute. Like our friends over at Conklin. So tell us. Let's go into. Of course, we know they make. I say we know. I just really figured out that dang, everything from agricultural to um, stuff for health, supplements for cats, cows, all sorts of stuff. Conklin does a lot of science and agricultural uh, goodness out there, which is really cool. Let's talk about the products that you're applying with the roofing, because you're dealing with foam, you're dealing elastomerics. Let's talk about all of that and what makes Conklin's products not just a good opportunity to grow your business, to get residual income, to have a great support staff, but what makes the actual chemical, the products themselves, that good to where you want to stand behind it and be your front runner of what you offer as a service and as a company.
And that's a great question. I really appreciate that. One of the things that's so unique about us that I think very few people, and I don't go watch other people's businesses, but in the company that we're associated with, I know the owner on a first name basis. In fact, I have his cell phone number, right?
That's
So
wild.
I can call him, right? Like I meet him. When we do corporate trainings, he's there. Like he's very visible. He's very hands-on. He's very involved. And one
That's
thing he will
Herbster.
tell. That's a Mr. Herbster. That's correct. That's correct. He is also a huge Trump fan. I'm going to put that right out there, right? If you don't
Wow.
like Trump, right, then you probably don't want to come to our corporate events because he will probably talk about it. So, so there you go.
And
Um,
this guy, real quick, I just don't mean to interrupt you, but just looking at his pedigree, uh, the man is still chief executive officer of Carico Farms Inc., Hertzler Angus Farms, North American Breeders, Agri Solutions, Judy's Dream Inc., Conklin Company Inc. I mean, so much he's been doing. Um, and so you want to talk about legit and
yeah, yeah.
consistency, execution, and that you are able to get a hold of him via cell is insane. That is really cool.
Yeah, he runs and owns multiple businesses, as you mentioned, but that's our culture. He believes in being involved, and I look at it, and here's the deal: he could sell Conklin for hundreds of millions of dollars, and he knows that, We know that, right? He could choose to take a hands-off approach, but to him, it's about the mission, right? And the mission is empowering other people, and so that's why he does what he does. So one of the things he's always told us is he said he's sitting in many board meetings, many staff meetings, and he's always looked for how can I make a product better, not how can I make a product cheaper. He's never asked the people, how can I make this product cheaper? The company doesn't have to answer to board. The company doesn't have to answer to stockholders. Nobody else. It's all Mr. Hertzler's call. And his call is, I want the best product that money can buy. I don't care what the price is. If you can get me the best product, we will test it, we will evaluate it, but if we have something really, really, really good, chances are I can show you exactly how this makes sense to use. And in our product, it's no different, you know. Yes, we have probably one of the more expensive roof coatings out there. There's people that have cheaper ones, I know that for a fact, but we have a proven system that if you follow that, you know, these roofs are going to last for 10, 20, 30 years. We had a customer who called us in around 2019. He called us and he says, hey, I see you do Conklin coatings. He says, my dad used to own this building and he had a Conklin coating put on this building sometime between 1998 and 2000. So it was minimum 19 years old, maybe a few more. He said, it's not leaking, but I think my warranty expired, and I would like to see if you could recoat it and we could get a new warranty. It was for a beer distributor. And so we went up there, we looked at it, and he wasn't wrong. It wasn't leaking. There was really nothing wrong with it. There was a few spots where it was starting to flake a little bit. And so what we did is we cleaned it, we prepped it, and we recoated it and gave him back another warranty. But the thing is when that was put on initially, he would have had a max of a 12-year warranty. That was the most that was available at that time frame. So this was year 19, so a good 50% out of, right, he had at least 50% over warranty period, still no issues, and he was willing to pay us to coat it because he understood the value of taking care of what he had. So he paid us probably about $140 a square, right, to just go and just recoat it, and it was good for a long time. And anybody that knows anything about commercial roofing knows that you don't get much of a roof for $140 a square. So the reason this was so effective was our system was already in place. We were just adding that extra layer that the acid rain keeps washing away at, right? They keep chipping away every time it rains. So we're just building that layer back up, and boom, he's good to go.
What's that process look like? If it's just straight on metal and there's no foam, what are you doing?
So you're talking a roof that's never had a Conklin system before. What we do is we start with a cleaner. We have a cleaner that we use because some of them will have rust and we need to neutralize the rust. So you spray a cleaner on it and you pressure wash it. And the goal with the cleaner is to clean the roof and to neutralize the rust both so that doesn't break back through afterwards, right?
So it's like a double banger, a little rust inhibitor and a cleaner at the same time.
That's right. That's right.
That's pretty cool.
Yep. And then our primer is the same way. Our primer is very tacky. It remains tacky, and it's specifically made for those rusty spots to go in there and seal those up and make sure that now that it's been neutralized, that we also seal it, block it off so it can't get air and it doesn't come back and try to come back through there. So we prime it and then we caulk the screws. Here in Pennsylvania, we have problems with ice dams in the winter, and so we caulk every screw and we put base coat and a fabric along the seams of the roof. And the reason for that is when you get a snow and an ice dam, you don't have to worry about the water crawling over top of that and getting in anywhere. We do that. Once that's done, the roof is pretty much watertight, but then we add that top coat because we're adding millage on top of our system so that as the weather chews away at it, okay, it's just eating at the top coat. It's not actually eating at our waterproofing system. So we could make it substantially less money and still be waterproof simply by eliminating the top coat. You know, a top coat goes on at 2 gallons a square. It could be significantly less if you didn't apply all that material over the top. It would still be waterproof, but the water would be eating away at day one, would start eating away at your waterproofing system instead of just eating away at your top coat.
And are you're able to utilize Conklin on? We're talking metal, mod bit, TPO, PVC.
Yeah,
What
all
E,
membranes. We
EPDM?
EPDM, TPO, mod bit, built up roofs. Spray foam comes into play when you don't get good adhesion. You can use that, like over gravel roofs, stuff like that. We can go over top of concrete. There's very little surfaces that we can't do something with.
What about like what are your process? Are you using the same type of cleaner for the EPDM? Because that's some dirty ass stuff.
Yeah, no, so you use a completely different cleaner from the metal to the EPDM,
Hmm.
and you're absolutely right. The biggest challenge I think that anybody in roof coating industry does is if you're working with an EPDM or a membrane roof is getting it clean. If you want it to work, you gotta get them clean. If you don't get
Yeah,
them clean, it doesn't stick. And
yeah.
and
I
I
mean,
think
and that's
that's
like,
the
and that's it, just about any type of coating, whether you're painting a car or a house. And of course, these aren't paints; these are completely different mixtures, formulas. Um, so as far as let's because you do also multifamily, um, industrial, and what about with like say hospitals and stuff like that, and the chemicals and VOCs and whatnot? Do you have like as far as the chemicals you guys are using are they pretty hospital and school friendly? So when you're going after those contracts,
They are. They are. They're very friendly to the environment in general. In fact, one of the interesting things that people always find is if you look at our active ingredients, you can look it up. The cleaner that we use to clean our metal roofs, the active ingredient is phosphoric acid, and it may or may not say that on the label, but Conklin only buys food grade phosphoric acid, and you're like, wait a minute, what is food grade phosphoric acid? Well, food grade phosphoric acid is what Coca-Cola puts into their drinks. So if you drink Coca-Cola, you drink a version of what we use as a roof cleaner. Now, I will not advise you to drink roof cleaner. Okay, I will strongly advise against it. I will tell you that we are probably using it in a significantly concentrated form from what they put in Coca-Cola. However,
well, heck,
the,
you can use soda pop to clean some pretty crazy stuff. Get the acid
the
off your battery terminals.
Yeah, the fact is that if it's safe enough for them to use a version of it to put in food, right? If it's not a big deal. If you spill it, it's not a big deal. If it gets in the water, gets on the ground, whatever. And so it's very safe from an environmental perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you know me, brother. I love, and I know you too. You love being in nature, and you and your family visit Florida quite a bit when you get a chance. Love the beach. So I love to hear about, especially the large companies that are dealing with chemicals and whatnot that do have a immediate effect on our nature, on our planet. I love to see that. Thinking about nature is top of mind, um, because that also all that stuff bleeds into us. It goes into us. All the food, all
Yeah,
the water, um, and that's another leads to another. Like when we're talking about the foam roofing systems, uh, that I know some people like, some people don't. Um, it's to each their own. There's definitely a time and a place for everything, every application. But I think one of the things I love about it is being able to extend a warranty, with the foam and as well as just the coatings that you can add to it, whether it's scarifying, and going back over with another coat to elongate the life of the roof as well as the warranty without putting just a ton of junk into our landfills, with a complete new roof system. I think that's important that we're really pushing towards those types of products in our environment.
for sure,
So
for sure.
yeah.
So I'll give you an example where we use the spray foam roof. A nursing home called us, and I went up, looked at the roof project. It was a ballasted EPDM over insulation over a built up roof that had like tar and gravel on it. And underneath it, it had gypsum decking. And so we went and we got TrueFast out to do a pool test, see if we could, adhere to the decking. And he denied it. He said that that the gypsum decking is too soft, even with their new fancy plastic augers and every type of fastener he could throw at it. We were not getting sufficient adhesion for him to say, hey, you can use that and be done with it. So now you're left with, okay, what else what are my other options? Well, the other options, you have to tear it all off and glue everything in place as you build it back up. And I looked at it, and I went back down and talked with the manager, and the manager says, listen, he says, if you can get me a price under 200,000, he said, the job's yours. It's as done as that. He said, because we've had some horrible pricing. And I looked at it and I said, well, if I tear it all off and you have to add, now you have to go back and you have to add 2 layers of 2.6-inch ISO, and then you got to put a tapered system in, you got to do all that. It gets very expensive very quick. So we used a creative solution. We took off the rocks, we took off the ballasted EPDM, and we took off the insulation, and then we took a power broom and we broomed as much of that rock and gravel as we could off of there. And then we used spray foam, and we tapered it from 1 inch to 3 inches, tapering it to the drains to try to create some natural slope. And we put that on that whole 130 squares. We put our coating system over top of it. They paid us right around 170,000 for it, I think, when it was done. But it was a beautiful situation because it saved that nursing home right at around $80,000 over what a standard system would have been, and it wouldn't have been any better. In fact, this was significantly better. We have so much spray foam up there that they lose hardly any heat from it, and it's very cool in the summer from the reflectivity. And so it was a really good option for that nursing home, and they've been thrilled with it ever since.
Oh, that's awesome. Because yeah, that's a great tool belt to carry around, is having pretty much a product, and that's what it sounds like. You guys have a product that'll fit just about every application. What would you say your favorite project has been? Because that sounded like a challenge and a fun one that you got to find a solution that was saved a lot of money, probably saved a lot of time, as well as I know with nursing homes, hospitals, schools, factories, there's a lot of downtime that is not acceptable. These businesses, these organizations are like organisms, and they need to continue to stay open, or they lose a lot of money, they lose a lot of functionality. So being able to provide a solution to where they don't have to shut down, they don't have to, sequester the kids in a part of a building for 6 months while you guys, continue to, build, because that is a huge stressor that can change the landscape of any business organization's, year plan, 2-year plan. It can really put a hamper in it if, you've got to spend any time outside of that facility. So again, having a tool for just about every situation is a huge turn on, when you're dealing with clients, especially in the commercial world. You've got to be able to provide a solution very quick, very cost effective, and not just think about yourself. When I think, again, when you go back to that mission statement and teaching people how to better themselves, as well as realizing the power that we all have in ourselves to make a difference on a daily basis, I think that's where we hit home runs for everyone. And just looking here, like you guys you've done some pretty cool roofs, across the board, and you use some great products. So is that John Deere, Holiday Inns, Toyotas? I mean, you do some pretty cool projects, man.
Yeah, we certainly have. I mean, we've worked for most major companies. If you look at it, I know we've worked for Wise Potato Chips. Is something that some people recognize. Big thing around here. One of the first projects, and the owner will tell you about it. One of the first projects we ever did was for Hornady. Nobody knows who Hornady is. Yep.
Ammunition,
Boom, boom.
baby.
Yeah, there you go. Right. And I think they're out of Minnesota, I think, somewhere. I forget where they're from, but anyhow, Hornady had a problem, and this was when they first developed Rabbit Roof 3. It was brand new. It was just an idea, right? They started making it, and the Hornady guy says, hey, he says, I got a problem. My roof is leaking. Sounds like you got something that's going to fix it. And he says, I want to do the whole thing. And at that point in time, it was only available in 5-gallon buckets. It was just a one-part system. There was now we have a whole system that was with it. Back then it was just a coating. As I said, it was just an idea, really. And this guy bought I think it was 18 semi-loads of 5-gallon buckets to put on his Hornady factory,
Jeez.
because the thing was acres and acres big. It was absolutely massive. And they got a
I
crew of
imagine.
people up there. They brushed the whole thing. Think about that, Cam. 18 semi-loads of 5-gallon buckets, and they brushed the whole thing. And that's how they did the roof on
That sounds
Hornady ammo.
that sounds backbreaking, man. Jeez.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
emptying
Welcome
the
to
buckets.
welcome to summer.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've done some cool stuff. We had a customer who had an indoor project in an industrial facility, and they wanted to waterproof this small area, and they had a lot of restrictions, like well, you could bring membranes in, but you couldn't make smoke, and you couldn't have VOCs, and they had a whole bunch of stuff. And so we did a cool little project there with our coating system where we were able to come in, and it was inside a factory and work while they were doing their thing. Um, the hardest part with working inside is being able to get enough air and enough low enough humidity that the stuff can dry. Like it's hard to realize how high the humidity is in a lot of these factories and
Yeah.
manufacturing places. Humidity is just so high, it's really hard to get it to dry. So,
Yeah, that's huge. I'm actually dealing with that in Virginia. I was inspecting a roof, a metal roof on, it's 500 plus squares, and it's a concrete factory, and
hmm
it's a hot mix inside this metal building. So that heat and that humidity it creates condensation, which the condensation and the chemicals, I guess the acids, whatever that are within the concrete adhesion chemicals, create a combination of the humidity, and it just makes rust happen a lot more rapidly. um, and weakened the roof system, and they got 2-inch hell, and those pieces of hell went right through the coating and the metal roof where it was rusted in multiple spots. um, but luckily, there was no verbiage excluding, which a lot of times you'll find that within factories within uh, you know dealing with those types of chemicals. But yeah, we're going to be able to bring some victories. So I know it's, yeah, humidity, because again, these buildings are just like your home is a living, breathing organism in a way that if the HVAC systems aren't working the right way, if they're not even installed the right way with the type, as the correct type of ventilation, you're you're welcoming some very big problems. And better than I do, especially dealing with foams. Picking the right type of um, insulation is key when you're talking about what you're producing and what type of humidity and heats and venting solutions are going on. So there's a lot to think about and to talk about when it comes to commercial and picking the correct products. Because if you don't, just like with this concrete facility, you're gonna wear your roof system down a lot faster, and you're gonna have to pay a lot of money out of pocket. Usually, unless you have a good policy that doesn't bite you in the butt. Um, I do want to touch back base on the multi-level side of it, because it's something I'm interested in as just the idea, because I do believe in it. I've seen it work with other people. Everyone, in fact, that I've met through Hugh are just some of the best people, and they're finding nothing but success with it. And again, I know it has in part to do with the work ethic that they have, of course, and it seems to be very consistent with all the people that you surround yourself with, um, whether it's Eli or you just all your friends that you've introduced me to that are now my friends are just top notch people. Um, so with that being said, I've seen you, and I've been a part of. You have done little clinics to where you've flown to Texas, and we did. I think it was NTSID. It was their first laboratory, which was name that shingle, the identification. It was their first laboratory where they did all the testing of the shingles before they grew and got into a huge warehouse. Um, but we got to apply, some Conklin over there, and you did a clinic. And I've, and just knowing a few people that attended it that have added it to their business model and um, their products that they're able to offer. It's just made them so dimensional, and it's better. It's made their lives better and their business better. Um, so let's talk a little bit deeper about that, because I don't think there needs to be a fear. I think there needs to be more education, because maybe it's not right, a good fit for everyone, just like everything. But if it is, what does that look like? How does a contractor who's already doing, comp shingles, who's doing some commercial that really wants to get deeper into it and says, you know what? I like the idea of being able to provide a really good product, commercial roofing product, and make residual income by empowering other people. Like, what does that look like from day one? If I'm a roofer and I get to meet you, what does that introduction look like, and how does that process look like adding Conklin into my world as a roofer?
Sure. Well, thanks for that, Cam. I actually forgot. I was supposed to throw a disclaimer in there because we have all these three-letter agencies that try to monitor all of us. Are we still live? My thing is
Mm-hmm.
buffering a little bit. Are we good? Okay. We have all these agencies
Yeah,
that
we're
try to
we're still
monitor
live.
everything, and one of them, they don't want us to make any claims. So just know that whatever we talk about here, right? They may not be These results may not be typical. These are things that I have experienced in my life, but it may not be your typical or your average results. So just understand that. But as far as working with contractors goes, so you can find me. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me wherever. When people get in touch with us, one of the first things that I encourage them to do is I want them to come to Kansas City, take the training where 99% of the time you'll get to meet the owner. You'll get to understand our culture, which is very important to all of us, right? You'll get to understand why we do what we do, but you also get that warranty training where you are now eligible to go on your own roofs and offer a warranty. So when you do that, then the next thing that I do is I go to your office, wherever that's at, and I meet with you. We work with your salespeople, and we're like, what's our goals with this? We now have another tool in the tool belt. How are we going to approach this, right? Like, what do we want to do? How are we going to go do marketing, right? Are we going to go door knocking? What do we want to do? What kind of sales do we want to look with? And so I meet with them and I help them walk through that process. And then also, as part of that, when they get a job, they're like, hey, I've never done this. Yes, I took the training, but nothing's better than hands-on. And so I meet with them. We get on the job together, and sometimes I'll send some of my employees, or I'll go, or depending on the project, we'll all go,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll walk them through our techniques that we use to make this effective. Because there's nothing better than getting them hands-on. We can teach them what it is that we do, and we can make them basically, if they follow the same procedure that we do, then we can ensure that the owner is going to get a good quality roof instead of just being like, well, we're going to give you a classroom idea and then spray and pray and hope it works out. No, 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 we don't use that approach. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
Well, and
part of
also
our.
too, your training, are you going to, is just like maybe one individual? Or are you actually going to get, like you said, on a job in like the entire, like maybe installation crew? Are you, do you have that ability to like, hey, I'm going to come in and train up if this is going to be your installation crew that you're using? Because I would say, and maybe I'm speaking a little too general, but just in my experience, most Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, they're using a lot of subs.
Sure.
Whereas you're not just a salesman. Like, you have installed thousands of squares of these products, and the crews you use are people that you really know, and then
Right.
you
Right.
know you grow together. It's
Right.
not
We
just, you're not
have.
just calling a sub and seeing who's available that can cover that job, right?
Right. One of the really cool things is when you join with us is we have a Facebook group with quite a few people in it, and we actually have trained contractors within that group that have done the industry training. They have the certifications. They can come be a sub on your job, and you can use a hands-off approach if that's your choice. We have access to that, which makes it pretty nice. Not everybody does, but we do. But yes, we work with, if you have your own crew that you want to use, then we'll work on teaching them. I always tell people on your first job, let's just bring everybody out there that you want to know, and we're going to do a little training session right here on the job and get everyone, get them some education. Once you work with it, you work with it for a few hours. The concept's very simple. This is not a complicated process. And so people generally, they get it
Yeah.
pretty quick. So yeah, but yeah, that's what,
Yeah.
that's
No,
what we do.
I love coatings.
Yep.
That's
Last
awesome,
week
man.
I
Yeah,
was,
I've seen it. I've been hands on with.
yeah, I was in,
Go ahead, buddy. I'm sorry.
I was in Wisconsin last week, before that, forget where I was, but yeah, I travel so much. I was in Florida. I was in Wisconsin. We're working with some people in Michigan, and so we have just people in different states, and that's what we do. We want to help people grow, but we really want them to understand that we're all about the quality, and if you're not willing to do a good job, then really don't bother calling.
Well, yeah, because I would assume that there's a criteria that you've got to meet to continue to be able to provide the products of Conklin, correct? Like you can't just
Yes,
be some blow that's going up there just slapping mops around.
in order to provide warranties, they do inspections. Depending on what type of warranty they do, they ask for pictures of everything. And so if it doesn't meet their criteria, they won't issue you warranties on it. It's the same way with their preferred contractor program. We flew all of our preferred contractors got a week in Hawaii last year as a bonus from the Conklin company. And part of that criteria is you got to buy a certain amount, obviously, but they send somebody at Conklin's cost that comes out and walks roofs with us and says, hey, right, take me on your projects. I want to walk it. I want to see what it looks like. And if you are not following the spec and you're not doing a good job, they will deny you that opportunity based on your not following the rules, not following procedure.
Good. What about let's say I'm a commercial roofer, and maybe I'm not even a part of Conklin yet, and maybe I am. I don't know. But let's say I've got a big project, and maybe I don't know for sure if it's a good candidate for a coating, um, or to be even warrantyable. Maybe the roof's holding too much water in the foam, whatever it may be. Is that something that Conklin and or yourself could or would provide, that like would have someone come out and do some type of testing or walk the property, walk the roof with you and see if this would be a good solution, especially if it's like your first first go at it?
Yeah, for sure. When let's say a commercial roofing contractor calls me and he's not in our program yet, he's thinking about it and he's like, "Hey, I got this roof system, right? And I'd like to put a bid in it." And then I mean, I'm going to kind of feel them out and see where they're at because when I work with someone, we put a lot of effort and commitment forward. And so I just tell them straight up, look, like you commit to me, I commit to you. That's kind of how this works, right? Like I'm only willing
Thank
to
you,
give
Andrew.
you so much without getting nothing in return. If you're willing to use
Oh,
our products or give it a
Andrew,
shot,
did we lose
I'm
you?
willing to do it.
Let me see if I see him.
And
Oh,
so,
he's not there anymore, ladies
there's
and gentlemen. I think he's dropped off. We were just over an hour, I think hour and 5 minutes. Definitely a lot we could continue to delve into. If he hops back on, I'll let him, but I don't know that's how it works with this. It's not like
am I
Zoom where
here?
you can hop in and out. Um, but anyhow, I thought we got some really good value, at least for me. And we're gonna have another opportunity to talk to Andrew. I think I will be heading out to the East Coast soon um, to visit some jobs of his and to experience. Um, I think I'm going to stay at the Airbnb. I'm going to do some guardian. This is him texting me. Um, we are good. I'll call you after. I don't know if we are that good. I may have just lied to him because I don't know how this recording's gonna, if it actually uploaded. Because when I stop it, usually the person stays on with me for about 15 to 20 minutes. So it uploads or downloads, whatever, the best high quality. It may have just recorded to the cloud. So we'll see how this turns out. But Andrew is a super awesome guy. Andrew Hertzler. I also know one of his cousins, crazy enough, here in Oklahoma. Love the gentleman too. But Andrew's just good people. And if you want to know him, if you want his number, reach out to me. Find him on Facebook. Again, it's Andrew Hertzler. Um, I think it's a great opportunity. I'm sure there's tons of people that are going to talk shit and comment here about coatings or maybe even Conklin. But everyone I've met that is attached to the brand, the products, are just some of the best people. And yes, every single one of them used to be within the Amish community, and they're not anymore. And I wanted to delve into that with Andrew, but like you heard, he just never did feel like he fit into it. And I know there's more into it. We've talked about it personally, but we were going to delve into a little bit more of that, and we'll jump in that when I go to visit him. We're going to get even more granular about that life because it's just interesting to me, and it's nothing that I'm wanting to poke fun about. I just am just very curious because it's two totally different worlds, and he's a man who's lived in those two totally different worlds, and he's of course it's of course what's all within the same world, but hypothetically or whatever, it is a different world. Um, you know it, I know it. Most of us out there couldn't, if you were to be stuck in an Amish community today, you'd be screwed. You wouldn't know how to, tie your own damn shoes. Everything is Velcro today. Everyone's lives sometimes it just seems like they're Velcro, and everyone gets, absurdly butthurt about everything. You guys know it. We're in a lot of big world of trouble. But it's going to be fun. And I get to talk to some amazing people in our industry. I love the commercial roofing industry. There's so much to learn about it. With the products, with technology, and with the people. We've just got great people. And I just wanted you guys to know Andrew because he's a good friend of mine. He's good people, and I think he's doing really good things. And so, again, if you want to know him, reach out to him. He's a super fun guy. He's hilarious, and he hasn't seen a ton of movies. So that's another thing we're going to have to do. Maybe a segment on just me and Andrew watching movies. In fact, it was it's been an idea of me and I think friend TJ, just to sit down and watch Kingpin. That's one we definitely have to watch with him. There's a lot of movies we got to watch with my buddy Andrew. So that's going to be fun because everyone has the ability to watch movies now, and he's got a lot of catching up to do. We've talked about it. He knows that. So I'm going to introduce him to some of the worst movies ever. Um, but in a good way. I love him. He's good people. Thanks, guys, for joining me, joining Andrew here, Commercial Roofing Radio. I love this. It's such an honor to get to talk to some of the coolest people on this planet. I feel I love what I do.